Good evening, everyone. Big question here. What is the road ahead for Democrats in Tennessee? Well, just today, the Tennessee Democratic Party held a heated meeting about how to reach out to voters in rural counties. It's in response to the newly drawn congressional districts that many argue make it much harder for Democrats to win.
News Channel 5's Jason Lamb spoke to the head of the Democratic Party here in Tennessee about their plan for the years ahead.
You know, they were unwilling to do a lot of this explaining.
The chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party, Hendrell Remus, says he admits that the party needs to do a better job connecting with rural voters, especially now that state Republicans have carved up Nashville into 3 congressional districts, all incorporating several rural, conservative-leaning counties.
Democrats for a long time have been disorganized. We hadn't made the type of investments that we needed to make across the state.
Retiring Democratic Congressman Jim Cooper leveled some of the same criticism in an article published this week in the Nashville Scene, saying in part, what they have to do is genuinely love their brothers and sisters who live outside of Nashville, adding later, you have to have mutual respect and trust. And Remus says he agrees.
It's about making sure that people understand that despite our differences, there's a whole lot more that we have in common, and we've got to have actual boots on the ground.
But today, just hours before this interview, the Tennessee Democratic Party hosted this live stream with a campaign director from ruralorganizing.org, talking about how to get votes for Democratic candidates in rural counties.
Myself, who lives in East Nashville, can now organize with folks in Cookeville to oust John Rose, who's a POS.
A POS. Forgive me, but what kind of unity and trust does a phrase like that build?
Yeah, you know, I think that language is kind of hot. It's inflammatory. But at the end of the day, I think there's some folks who are living out in rural areas who probably feel the same way. If you look at some of the conditions that some of these people have been left in after repeatedly electing some of these folks who've represented them in rural areas and whose lives really truly haven't gotten better.
Remus says the focus will be on Democrats who live in the rural counties connecting one-on-one with people they know on issues like rural hospitals that have closed down across the state and other issues that conservatives tend to gravitate toward.
If you're a gun owner, you know, we're going to protect your Second Amendment, but we also want to make sure that you're not having to pawn your gun around the holidays to put a meal on the table for your family.
It's a big task, Remus says, but it's one he says he's up for. Jason Lamb, News Channel 5.